Hi, I'm Lenny Gunberg, and today I'm going to be walking you through how I leveraged the buying clock on a recent win with a company called iRobot. To give you some background, we were invited to participate in an RFP process for iRobot back in November 2019. After our initial review of the RFP document and our internal and external due diligence around the organization, one of the things that we uncovered was that this was actually going to be their third RFP in just 6 years, two of which we participated in previously. So when we dove into the actual specifics of the RFP, we realized that once again, this was just another request for proposal for language services and language technology. Nothing that we haven't seen before, right? And like most eager sales representatives in November time, I definitely jumped at the opportunity to provide a response to the RFP. So we knew that at this point, because they were in the RFP process, they were already in the change to who section of the buying clock. So it was our job to turn back the time on that buying clock and really start challenging them about what it is that they're trying to accomplish. So this was where we started prodding away at the specifics that we wanted to understand about their overarching strategy as an organization, and really shied away from just the language services or language technology specific elements. What this allowed us to do was not only get the information that we needed to put forth the appropriate response, but it really showed them that we were thinking outside the box. We weren't just here to be another vendor to provide language services. We were going to establish ourselves as a partner and a trusted advisor. So our strategy was really to understand why change? Why spend the time and money to run through your third RFP in 6 years and just be looking for a language service provider or a new TMS? That was what we really challenged iRobot on, and that's what allowed us to turn back the clock and really engage in a deeper conversation about why they're actually looking to change. And in doing so, what we were able to uncover is actually not a localization issue at all, but rather a content challenge. They were trying to solve what they believed were localization and translation challenges by looking for another localization vendor. But in having these discussions and really challenging them around why do you need to change, we actually opened their eyes a little bit about what is actually causing some of this problem and why they're even leading down the path of this RFP in the first place. So that did a couple things for us. First, it differentiated SDL against all the other vendors that were participating and the incumbent, because it was clear that they weren't asking these questions. What they were doing was providing a response to the proposal that was given to them. It established some credibility around our supporting the end-to-end content lifecycle, and was really eye-opening for the customer to see what they thought at the time just a language service provider asking questions about content management and content structure, taxonomy, and how they're publishing the content once it's translated. So now that we established that credibility, it was time to move down the buying clock to change to what. And now that we were in the change to what section of the buying clock, it was clear to us that iRobot really started shifting their own strategy around the RFP as they started to change some of the criteria that they were initially using to define the best fit partner for this process. So now we're back to change to who. Only this time, again, we've established our credibility. We've validated ourselves as trusted advisors, and I've been able to build a close relationship with the key stakeholders that were making the decision. All that was left is to help them make the decision to go with SDL. And this was the point where I felt comfortable enough to really truly challenge them on this initiative and on their decision-making process. This was the time that I reminded them that this was their third RFP in just 6 years. And going with a company like SDL, they weren't going to be back at the table in 2 years again. They were not going to keep that trend consistent. We were in it for the long haul, and we were the only organization in our industry that were really able to tackle their content challenges to ensure that all the bottlenecks that they were currently experiencing with localization, which is why they even went to the RFP in the first place, were satisfied and addressed by SDL. I think the icing on the cake was probably when I asked them what would happen if they didn't change. I don't believe that's in the exact process of the buying cycle, but I made sure to ask that at the end of this process because I knew they didn't have an answer. And I was right, they didn't, but I did. And I came prepared to outline all the risk factors that were associated with them not making a change let alone not moving ahead with SDL. And because I was able to outline and quantify what could potentially happen with both their organization, their strategy, and how their competitors could potentially take over, this is what probably sealed the deal for us. So they have verbally and electronically committed to change, and we are currently in the process of redlining our MSA and MSSA, but we've already started discussions with iRobot around onboarding and implementation, so we're very excited to have contracts signed, likely by next week. And in addition to everything that we managed to cover and succeed with on the RFP front, because throughout the entire process we were establishing ourselves as the true end-to-end content company, we are now engaged in discussions around Tridion. So watch this space. So in closing, I'd like to just say that the buying clock absolutely helped me throughout this sales cycle. There's no question that having a structure as methodical as the buying clock for this sales cycle made me a lot more confident in the conversations that I was leading, and made me a lot more confident in just how I was challenging the customer throughout this process. And in case you're wondering how I remembered the 4 different cycles of the buying clock and all the specific items that fall under that buying clock, I definitely didn't memorize it. I actually used my watch to reference back to anytime I got stuck, whether I was in the room with a customer or on a virtual call. I highly recommend, if you have a smartwatch, to make it a background and use it as a resource for you, because it will absolutely help you.